Hi and welcome back to Bounce Forward with me, Tiff. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm recording this podcast, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present. It's time for another celebrity bonus episode and I'm so excited about this one. My guest today is one of Australia's most decorated sports stars. She is the most capped player in Australian netball history with a career that includes 4 World Championship victories and multiple Commonwealth Games medals. In 2009, she was inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame for her contribution to the sport of netball. Liz Ellis, welcome to Bounce Forward. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to meet you.
Pleasure, Tiff. Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm a PT and a bit obsessed with training, so I have to ask you, when you were competing for Australia, what was a week of training like for you?
Well, I guess when I was playing, our week of training was wrapped around our work. None of us were professional athletes, so towards the end of my career, I'd set myself up to run netball coaching clinics and I had a few sponsorships. I didn't have to get up and do the 9 to 5 grind, but there was always commitments with those things. But a typical training week looked like, it's 15 years ago now, so I have to think about it. There would have been 2 on-court sessions with my club team, the Swifts, and then we used to play on a Friday night. So if that was an away game, it would be travelling on the Thursday night or the Friday morning, and then Saturday would be a recovery session. There'd be 2 weight sessions in there.
Wow.
There would be a plyometrics and a sprint session and a couple of endurance sort of sessions. So the thing that's missing from there, which I wish I had have known about all those years ago, was Pilates. And I'm actually dressed like this because I've just come from my regular Pilates class. So,
oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so if I had have known about that, I would have definitely thrown at least 1, possibly 2 Pilates classes in there. So my training week back when I was playing is vastly different to what a current player's training week looks like because most of them now can afford to be professional or semi-professional athletes.
Yes, it's a huge difference, isn't it? So how has your training changed since retiring now? What do you do to stay fit?
I chase my kids now.
Yes.
So I guess immediately after retiring, the thing that I did that was very deliberate was when I retired, I spent 6 months training down. So, I did, rather than go cold turkey on the training, because I think that's what a lot of athletes do. They finish their competitive career and then cold turkey. Why would I train when I don't have to?
Yes.
So I made a deliberate decision to just gradually reduce my training over the course of 6 months, and I just did a little bit less every 2 or 3 weeks until I was just exercising like a normal person. And that really continued for the first 3 or 4 years. And then I had kids and everything changed. So the first couple of years of having kids, I'm not going to lie, my training program went out the window and my commitment to my fitness was pretty lax. And, I've been pretty open in talking about the fact that we had our little girl who's now 12. She's not little anymore. And then after we had her for 5 years, between having her and my little boy, we did lots of infertility treatment.
Yes.
And I had 3 miscarriages, and I'm going to be honest, my physical fitness fell by the wayside, which is silly, isn't it? Because really that's when you really want to commit to it because it makes you feel good. But through all that time, I still felt like I was getting sort of incidental exercise, chasing my daughter around, jumping on the trampoline with her, riding bikes with her. We're on a farm, so I get lots of incidental exercise, chasing after cows.
That's fantastic.
Doing all those jobs that come with being a farmer's wife. Whereas now that the kids are a bit older, I can be a little bit more proactive about my fitness. So I do Pilates once or twice a week. I try and play tennis with some girlfriends once a week, and I've got a little gym set up in my garage that I get into a couple of times a week as well.
Oh, I love a garage setup. I've got a home gym as well, just a few weights, some free weights and a little cable machine in my garage, and it's a lifesaver. I love it.
It is, because you don't have to make a commitment or get dressed or anything. You can just be in your scuzzy gear.
In my PJs, I can just rip it out when my daughter's having a nap or something. It works. So you suffered an ACL rupture during your career, and my sport is taekwondo, and I had to have a full knee reconstruction, and myself, I found it very difficult coming back from that. But you went on to play some of your best netball. How did you overcome that?
So physically, there's a physical recovery from an injury, but the real way to overcome it, you've got to overcome the mental side of the injury. You've got to be able to to tell yourself that if you go out and do the same thing again, that your body won't break. And for me, that was a real realisation to understand that, because, you know, at the peak of my powers, I was strong and as fit as I ever could have been. And yet my body still gave away in a crucial moment during a test match. So for me, it was about the mental recovery as much as the physical recovery. So I was really careful about making sure that I did everything right, because to recover from an ACL, you really do build on what you did the day before. But for me, the thing was that every single day I told myself I'm getting stronger with everything that I do. And I had to have that conversation with myself every single day, so that by the time I went out and tested my knee for the first time or for the next time, my brain was ready to go. So I found that the mental side of that injury recovery was probably more important than the physical side.
Yes, I found that too. And I found that our injuries can be our best teachers, and I had to really learn patience. It was a very hard time. Now, you are one of the busiest people. How do you juggle family and work and staying active and looking after yourself and self-care and all those things?
I don't tie myself to this myth that you've got to have a work-life balance. I think that, you know, that suggests that everything's very even all the time, and, you know, you have your time allotted to your work and your time allotted to your life and your time allotted to yourself. And that just doesn't happen, does it? Because everything's always so lumpy. And like coming into Christmas at the moment, everything's lumpy. Work, life, the kids, my temper, my husband, everyone's lumpy, right? The way I tend to think of it is I'm really clear with myself about what my priorities are. And my priorities, my main priority are my kids and my husband, so our family. And so I sort of schedule them in first. And the times that I have to schedule work in that I can't be with them or that I miss something, I just promise to them that I'll make it up further down the track. And my kids know that in summer they get mama, because that's when I'm not as busy as the rest of the year. So I think I just know that I'm really careful. You've probably figured out from my whole thing about that I planned, you know, training down in my retirement. I'm a real planner, and I like to be a bit careful about, you know, when is my time for being with my family, and then when can I throw myself wholeheartedly into work. And this time last year, we were finishing up having 9 months in a caravan. So,
oh, wow.
You know, right when my television career was flying along, my husband and I decided that our kids were getting older and it was now or never to really take them on the road and show them Australia. So I left Channel 9 and we bought a caravan and we travelled for 9 months around Australia, and I had no idea what was going to happen at the end of that.
Yeah, but what was that like?
Oh, it was amazing. It was the best time we've spent. It was so good for us, not only to get to know our kids, but for our kids to get to know us. You know, they see Matthew being a farmer and really capable, and they see me being capable at what I do. But they got to see us when we had no idea what we were doing, and to see us have to work through that and to work through being cross with each other or being confused about where we were going and what we were doing. So that was an easy decision to make, because my family at the moment is my priority. And I thought, right, let's just do that and we'll work out what comes after that. And as it turns out, this year is as busy as I've ever been. But I did get back from that holiday last year and think, right, I've turned 50, my hair's gone silver, my television career is probably done with. And I
no way.
logged on to Seek, and I started to look at jobs that I could apply for.
Really?
Yeah, because I just thought that was it. Anyway, it turns out that was just stupid. But like, if you prioritise things, then your decisions become easier. You know, I prioritised my family and my kids last year. So when I had to make the decision this year of whether I was going to go and do I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here and spend 5 weeks in the African jungle, it was an easy decision because, you know, I prioritised my family last year. We knew that I needed to get back into some sort of work, and this was a way into it. And
yes.
The kids bought into it. They knew I was going to be away for 5 weeks. They knew that they would have to step up, and we just got on with it.
Yeah, it would have been so hard being apart from each other. What was that experience like, Liz? I know you won the series. What was the number one thing you learnt during I'm a Celeb and being away?
That having a month where no one says, Mum, what's for dinner is bliss.
Oh, my goodness. I would love that so much.
Yeah, when no one says, oh, Mum, I need this, my school uniform's dirty. So don't get me wrong, I missed Matthew and the kids desperately, and they missed me. You know, in fact, when the first elimination happened and it wasn't me, my little boy burst into tears. I want Mum to come home.
Bless.
But it was an amazing experience, and actually our little gang are often messaging each other, talking about how much we miss just all having that downtime and having the ability to have long, rambling conversations without time pressures, without having to get off and do something or be interrupted by technology. So to have a month without your phone, your watch, anyone from outside, and to be left alone a lot with your own thoughts and to think about your life was actually quite a gift. It was a really beautiful thing.
Now, you're hosting Gladiators and it's launching next year, which I'm so excited about. Have you watched the other seasons?
Yeah, and this chick, Tiff, she was my favourite.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes, I was a gladiator.
I watched it it wasn't when I was a kid. This is funny, actually. People have said to me, oh, my God, I watched it when I was growing up. Did you watch it when you were a kid? And I have to explain that in 1995 I was already grown up. But I still did watch it and I've loved them. And I love the great mixture of the contest and the physicality, but also the humour and the fun that's involved. So when I was in the Diamonds, I was big into traditions and understanding where we'd come from. And when I came into Gladiators, I went back and I watched a heap of the old shows and I watched the Netflix series Muscles and Mayhem because I wanted to understand the traditions of the show and where it's come from, because the franchise doesn't exist for that long. It's so beloved by so many people without having something special that runs through it. So I went back to see what it was about, and really the love is for the gladiators. Like, people love to see people who are superhuman and talk the talk and walk the walk. But also the love is to see, you know, these little Davids go up against these Goliaths and almost put their life on the line. So I sort of realised as a host, it's my job to get out of the way of that and just to sort of sit around the edges and to sort of help facilitate those big battles or the fun stuff that goes on. So I felt like it was such a privilege to be trusted with that role.
I can't wait to see the series. What can you tell us about it? Like, I know it's all secret, but what can you tell us about the gladiators, about the games?
I think, Tiff, you'll recognise a lot of what's there. It's like Gladiators but reimagined in the Marvel universe is probably the best way to put it. So the arena is amazing. You know, Bo Ryan, who's hosting it with me, we walked in and we were like, whoa, it's the only way to describe it is that it's epic. It's a big, epic arena. It looks like really deep and like there's a lot going on. Pyramid is still there, you know, the favourites that are still there. Things like Jewel, they're all there, right? So, but there's some new games, can't give too much away, that have sort of been brought in. And the gladiators are unbelievable. There's something there for everyone. You know, kids will find something in a different gladiator that they love. You know, my kids came along and my little girl loved Arrow.
Just connected.
But there's an element of fun. Like, you get a sense of humour. And, you know, they at the start, we decided we were only going to call them by their gladiator names.
Yeah, that was the same in my series. We weren't allowed to use our real names. And
yeah, right?
It was so bizarre. And Anthony Koutafidis still calls me Angel to this day. And I'm like, mate, you know it's not my real name.
You would know. These guys, no one will ever know their real names ever again. But at the first few days, we were calling them by, you know, their gladiator names, you know, Viking and Halo. And they were a bit sort of self-conscious about it, like a bit, this is weird. By the end, they were like inhabiting it. It was like, yeah, I am Halo, I am Chaos, I am Viking, I am Cobra, right? So it's just so good. And, of course, you know, we've got our little touch of the pass. We've got Hammer as the ref.
That's fantastic.
And, you know, he really inhabited that role of ref. He came in, he had all of the hand signals ready to go. He really took it very seriously. And he walked in and it was like he was in his happy place. It was just beautiful.
Oh, that's so cool. I just can't wait. What's your favourite game?
Oh, my favourite game is Powerball. It looks like netball and rugby league had a love child and it was called Powerball. Right? So there's the scoring element. You've got to get the balls into the big tubs, and then there's the tackling element, which adds a bit of danger and the chance of injury. And I loved it. Like, I watched it and I was glued to it. The first time I saw it, it was so mesmerising because it was like, whoa, these guys, it was like continents colliding. And it was great to see the contenders, you know, they'd get into it and they'd walk in and you could just see there was a bit of fear in their eyes. But the moment they got the first hit and took the first tackle and they realised they weren't going to die, then they were up and into it. And so many of them finished and were like, that's the best thing I've ever done.
And do they go full on? Because we were told, like, go full on with the contestants. Don't hold back. The gladiators are allowed to go for it.
Yeah. So can you imagine looking up and seeing Phoenix, who's done plenty of time on a rugby league field, coming at you? Like, there's a reason the contenders were nervous.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I can't wait to watch it. Now, Liz, I can't let you go without asking you some of your wisdom. Do you have like a mantra or a saying or a prayer or a song or something that always pumps you up and keeps you motivated?
I've got a couple of things, that I think about. One of my mantras is, if it is to be, it's up to me. Now, I'm not smart enough to have made that up, but anytime I think that I want to see something change, rather than wait for somebody else to do it, I always think, well, if I've got it in my power to affect the change that I want to see, actually stand up and do it. And sometimes that's really uncomfortable and you're sort of in a space that's like, I just feel really, nervous about what the next step is going to be. But ultimately, you sort of don't want to get through things and think, gosh, I should have changed that, or I should have done things differently, or I should have made the change that I wanted to see. And so that's sort of the first thing I think about. The song that really pumps me up when I'm feeling nervous is Eminem's Lose Yourself. And, I played that before every game of my last year of playing in 2007, and it's on just my playlist. I've got like a general playlist that I throw everything on Spotify. And when it comes on, I sort of pump up and the kids are like, oh, don't talk to mum for 3 minutes.
That's so great.
Yeah, so I love that one. So that's, and then the other thing that I think about when you worry about doing stuff, my other mantra, which I haven't told my kids yet because I don't want them to know this until they're out of my reach, is it's easier to seek forgiveness and permission. So, sometimes when I want to do something fun, I think, bugger it, I'm just going to go and do it. I'll worry about forgiveness later.
That's great. And Liz, last question. For someone struggling with their health and fitness, what advice would you have for them?
That's a really good question. And, even though I was an elite athlete and I sort of look fit now, there's been plenty of times in my life, especially during my battle with infertility, where I really struggled with my health and my fitness. And, you want to either turn to comfort food or wine or whatever to make you feel better. But I realised through that time that that's a really short-term answer. So the first thing is to be kind to yourself. That's the first thing, right? Understand that you are struggling and try and think of the reasons why you're struggling. But the next thing is just to start small. So be kind to yourself, start small. If it's as much as having a set of dumbbells sitting in the garage and every time you walk out you do 10 bicep curls, that's the first thing. You'll get used to that. And then next time you go, well, I could do 10 biceps curls and I could do 10 squats or whatever, or, walk around your backyard 10 times and then next time walk around your block. So start small, and it's those incremental things. And I learnt that recovering from my ACL injury, and that was a hard way to learn, but I learnt it.
Yeah.
And then that knowledge combined with the knowledge that when things are tough, you do have to be kind to yourself and you have to give yourself permission to really understand why you're sad or why you're struggling or why you're angry or why, and then sort of acknowledge that and think, right, I don't need to get from here to here right now, but I can take little steps to look after my health or my well-being. And sometimes that first step of looking after your health might be, I'm going to have one less glass of wine this week, or I'm going to choose to have my mineral water in a wine glass so I feel like I'm still getting my treat, or whatever, right? But there's ways of making those choices that, before when I was talking about, your work-life balance, it's like that with health and your wellness. It's not always level. There's lumpy bits. And when things get really lumpy and gnarly, the thing you need to do is just to make little choices here and there that all add up to something that is a real change and really helps to balance you out.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you so much, Liz Ellis, for joining us today. I was so excited to talk to you and to finally meet you. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Tiff. I think we need to catch up and go for start small, go for a walk in real life.
Yes, go for a walk. Go for a power walk and a power chat. I'd love that.
Perfect. Let's put it in the diaries.
Thanks so much for listening to Bounce Forward. I love having your company, so please DM me on Instagram at tiffhall_xo and let me know what topics you'd love me to cover. Don't forget to rate and review me on your podcast app. Speak soon and happy days.